All right, on today's episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I'll be your host. I'm James Barlowe, and we are going over my co-host, Big Board Leif Thulin, Big Board 1.0. A lot of surprises, but me and Leif, we think alike, but let's see how much we think alike. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast. I'm your host, James Barlowe. Today, joining me is my good friend all the way out in Utah, Leif Thulin. I want to thank you, all the listeners, first-time listeners, second-time listeners. It's draft season. We're recording this on a Monday night, so it is officially time for you to go through all the big boards you possibly can see. Your favorite podcast now is a newsletter introducing the Locked On, and again, we got so many teams. Locked On Jazz, Locked On Hornets, Locked On Rockets, but we do have a Locked On newsletter. It's your one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That's lockedondaily.com and start your day with all new free Locked On newsletter information. I know Leif is tuning in to the Jazz. Some teams tuning into the Hornets, the Rockets, whatever you got. We have a Locked On team newsletter just for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet wins. Again, FanDuel, $250 in bonus bets. Now, Leif, it's that time. It's Big Board 1.0. Let's get right to it. So, please listen where they can find your Big Board at, Leif.
Yeah, I posted it on my Twitter. It's a link to a Fanspo board. It wasn't super organic, so I took all the graphics and all that from there, but it's on my Twitter. My Twitter's just my name, LeifThulin. So give that a follow if you don't already. Lots of draft content and college basketball thoughts. And we just had the championship game where we're airing right after this. Awesome championship, awesome Final Four. And I'll get to watching more and more film of players because there's no more live games for me to watch. So I'll be watching lots of film and probably adjusting my board as we go. But 1.0 is out, and I'm eager to hear you guys' thoughts.
Cool. So I would say that this is pretty much a lock for everybody. Maybe there's a few non-believers, but number one on Leif's big board is Cooper Flagg. But before we get into that, Leif, is this your big board as Leif Thulin, or is it your big board as what the Jazz should do? Because again, I know you cover the Jazz. I know you're a big Jazz fan. Just give me a brief explanation on how this goes.
So this is an unbiased big board. This is how I'd rank the players regardless of who's picking where. No mock draft intended. That said, if the Utah Jazz pick number one, we better be taking Cooper Flagg. So this is an unbiased one. I likely, for my Jazz followers, will be tweeting out my preferences depending on where they land on May 12th on when the lottery happens. But this is an unbiased one, just how I'd rank these players on their individual abilities.
Got you. So I see number one, you got Cooper Flagg. No surprises there. Really quick, what are your thoughts on Cooper Flagg if anyone is tuning in for the first time?
Yeah, Cooper Flagg to me is the best prospect this year and possibly even next year, even though there's a ton of buzz about AJ, Darren Peterson, all these guys, because Cooper Flagg's got this supercomputer ability to process things and get better as the season has gone on. He started the year averaging 26 and 12 in games against the AP top 25 teams as a 17-year-old, and that was about a 4-game span. And yet somehow he looked night and day different and better from the start of the season to the end of the season. His shot, that was a question mark. How good is he? How naturally gifted of a scorer is he? Can he shoot with a little bit of a hitch in his jump shot? Well, you look up and he's shooting over 80% from the line, over 37% from three, and he's the best player in the nation, just won the Wooden Award. Like, you can't make that up. Now, if you translate that to the NBA, the guy he reminds me most of is Jason Tatum, not in terms of the way that they score, but the way that they both have the ability to switch 1 through 5 defensively, can offensively initiate. And Flagg is a far better passer than Tatum was initially, but Tatum doesn't play point guard for the Celtics. but he's their truest initiator. The ball is brought up by Holiday or White. They give it to Tatum. The offense really starts, and they create those advantages that lead to the 53s that the Celtics shoot per game. I think Cooper Flagg can be that for any NBA team, and I think he can score 25 a game and be an all-NBA defender all in a couple of years. I don't expect all of that immediately, but if you look at Cooper Flagg and don't think all-NBA is the possibility and potentially first-team all-NBA by the time he's 25, I'd say that you haven't paid attention to his growth rate and how quickly he's achieved all these growths in his game. And it's not just, he's gotten older, he's gotten stronger. Like, he's still 18 years old. There's tons to develop. And how quickly he processes things makes me even higher than I was to enter the season. And, I mean, as a Jazz fan, I've been salivating over Cooper Flagg for a long time.
Yeah, he, like you said, I can't think of the last player that I saw that just got better every month. And he started off really hot again. They were tested. They had Auburn early. They had Kentucky early game. He got better. And the questions went from, can he shoot to, he can shoot. So, he's a different dude for sure. And it's a lot of going into the season. And, he has surpassed the hype. And it would have been crazy had he made that shot against Houston. How we talk about him as, one of the best freshmen of all time had they, finished the deal, but they didn't. So here we are. So number 2, you have Dylan Harper. At 3, you have Ace Bailey. And at 4, you have Tre Johnson. So again, thinking about what other people have versus what I have versus, me and Leif, we're kind of we're in tune. I agree with you from 2 and 3. And I have somebody different at 4, but you have Tre Johnson at 4. Please explain why is Tre Johnson at 4 over the likes of VJ Edgecombe, which I know who is very popular on a lot of other big boards.
Yeah, so you look. I'll start just at number 2. To me, Harper's the only other guy I see in this class aside from Cooper Flagg that has, hey, give him the ball. This is the keys to the franchise type of guy. I don't quite feel that way about Ace Bailey, but I think if you're drafting number 3 and Harper and Flagg are gone, Ace Bailey is the guy that I think has the prerequisites as well as some of those traits that you just can't teach. He's 6'10", he can shoot the heck out of the ball. Guys like that rarely fail. They may not end up as good as hey, he's Kevin Durant light. That's not going to happen. But Brandon Ingram's been an all-star. Michael Porter Jr., who's of that ilk, has been a very good player on a winning team that's won a championship. So those type of players rarely fail, but he has more potential than a guy like Michael Porter Jr. did post-injury. Now, to the point that's more controversial, Tre Johnson. Tre Johnson, to me, has more potential to be that guy than VJ Edgecombe because VJ Edgecombe has so much untapped ability in terms of, can he dribble? Can he create for himself? And some people say, it's spacing related, that Baylor didn't have the proper spacing. Well, it's not like their team was lacking shooters, and it's not like they didn't get him right actions to get him going downhill. VJ Edgecombe is a straight line driver. There's no deviations to the path he takes. He goes straight line drive and elevates like no one else. But he shot far better than I thought. But I just can't unsee the beginning of the year when you're playing inferior competition. If you're a top 4 pick in the NBA draft, you're supposed to dominate against the schools that don't have the same level of athletes. And he shot terribly, and he was a non-factor. Only thing that I noticed him for was rebounding. And that's not a sign that you want if you're going in the top 4. He got significantly better, and I talked about this, how maybe I was too critical. But I still don't think at any point in the Big 12, he raised my eyebrows to the point where I said, yeah, that guy can be an all-NBA talent. And to me, when you're drafting in the top 3, top 4 of an NBA draft, especially one that's considered good, you're looking for a franchise-altering talent, some guy who can change the trajectory of where your franchise is, and you can give the keys to be that guy. And I hesitate to believe that's the case because at no point did he demonstrate individual creation ability. He's a straight line driver and a catch and shoot guy who attacks closeouts. I don't see him being the guy with the ball. So I know it's a lot about VJ. So now I'll go to Tre. Tre has all of that. He is the guy who was handed the keys, and whether efficient or inefficient, he was an all SEC guy who I think should have been first team. He led the SEC in scoring, what was the best SEC ever. Had 14 teams make the tournament, including Texas, and Tre Johnson scored over 20 a game. Now, Tre Johnson, I even said this in the very first game he played against Ohio State, scored 28. I said, I don't like some of the shots he takes, but the fact he makes them is a good thing. And that's a team that had no spacing whatsoever. And I kind of think of Tre in the best case scenario in the NBA as being put in the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander role. I don't think they're the same player. I want to reiterate that. They're not the same player, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not a point guard. But on this team, he's given the ball, and he's such a good scorer. He draws so much attention from the defenses that he becomes a good distributor of the basketball because he draws the eyes and attention of all of the help defenders, and he gets other people involved. In the perfect world, Tre Johnson could be a 25-point scorer who's able to be a plus-size guard who has the traits that make him okay defensively. Does he have the willpower? Does he have the work ethic defensively? Who knows? But the dude can score, and I think he can play more point guard than a guy like VJ Edgecombe, who's got all these athletic traits, and I just don't see being a facilitator or a creator in the same ilk of Tre Johnson.
I agree with you. Like I said, me and Leif, we see eye to eye, and it's like I only text Leif when it's time to do a pod, but it comes to find out when we talk, it's like, man, it was the same thing I just said. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come through, and we're going to answer some more questions about Leif's top 10, and eventually in the segment round, first round. Stay tuned. So in the first segment, we covered Leif's top 5 players in this draft. If you're just now joining us, Leif had Cooper Flagg to basically no one's surprise. Shouldn't be anyone's surprise. Number 1, Dylan Harper 2, Ace Bailey 3. The controversial pick, if you want to call it that, was Tre Johnson 4, and he had VJ Edgecombe rounding out the top 5. So I'll read off 6 through 13, and then we'll pick out some guys. So 6. I got Leif down for Derik Queen. I'm a fan of Derik Queen. We'll hear him talk about Derik Queen. Jeremiah Fears at 7. I'm a big fan of Jeremiah Fears as well. 8, Common Maluwauch. At 9, Leif has Khan Kneppel. At 10, he has Noah Esingye. 11, Kasparis Yakachonis. 12, Asa Newell. And rounding out lottery is Liam McNeely. So let's start with, on the rundown, Derik Queen in your top 6. Tell me why you have Queen as the 6th best player in this draft.
Man, I'm a believer in potential, and if they're put in the perfect situation, who's going to be the best player? Yeah, people can say, let's get some safety in this and make sure you take some players with high floors as opposed to high ceilings. But Derik Queen's a guy that I think has the potential ability to be a number 1 option and a top 2 player on a team that can win. You just have to support the team around him with the right players that make up for his deficiencies. His deficiencies are more well known than his absolutely otherworld abilities, and I think that's a shame. His deficiencies are he's slow-footed and he's not like a prototypical rim protector. That said, Nora is the best player in the world right now. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world, and it's not even close. If Shai wins the MVP, that's a travesty. I know that's neither here nor there, but I just want to say it. And I'm a Jazz fan. I don't like the Nuggets at all. But let's just talk ball right there. It's not even close. Now you go talk about Queen, and yeah, he's probably not going to be as good as Nikola Jokic. Like that would be unbelievable. But he has a lot of those tendencies that Alperen Sengun, Domantas Sabonis, guys that are applauded for their creativity and offensive prowess because they can score and facilitate and they get rebounds. Like no one else had more 20 and 10 games of all these prospects. Derik Queen gets all these boards. He gets these rebounds despite not being able to jump. He's able to score 20 points against stiff competition that, the Big Ten's known for playing slowly, and they started playing a little more quickly this year, but he still was able to put up 20 and 10 routinely and make the passes. And what he does well is he scores, he passes, he rebounds, and he's not a prototypical rim protector, but he's able to be a hub of an offense. And we applaud guys, like I mentioned, the all-star versions of Sengun, Jokic, of course, Sabonis. But there's so many role players in the NBA that are applauded for being able to pass out of the post or be a big orchestrator. He's that and then some because he can score 20 points. So I think Derik Queen's got as good a chance of anyone outside the top 5 and maybe even inside the top 5 of being a routinely selected all-star. So that's my pitch. But I mean, you've been on the Derik Queen train for even longer than I have. And like you said, we often think similarly. So I wasn't terribly far behind, but I think you lead the charge over me in this one.
I mean, like you said, I think as evaluators, we have the tendency to focus on, it's not just Derik Queen, we focus on what they can't do, right? And while I get it, he's not your prototypical rim protector, and he doesn't pass the eye test because he might be on a little bit of the chunky side, and you see the long sleeve tee, and it doesn't look like he's running hard all the time, but he has stuff that you can't teach. And sometimes with guys of just that level of talent, it's like I can't teach the 1 foot, you know what I'm saying, game winning shot, the court vision that he has. And you mentioned his rebound, but again, I don't know, great rebounder in Julian Reese. So it's like he's extremely talented. I do think he can move his feet on defense in more of a switchability role, not Al Horford like, but I feel like when he locks in and in the right plan, you can take advantage of his, because he's got good hands. And then, like, if you follow me on Twitter, I clipped up a defensive montage of him 2 minutes and on switches, and he did a great job. And again, are these NBA level guys he's guarding in the video? No, but I do think he has the athleticism enough to defend enough on the perimeter. Again, will there be some hard hedges? Yes. But is he going to be I don't think he's going to be your drop coverage big, just because that's not going to help him out. But at the same time, like the guys you mentioned, obviously if he's not Jokic, that amazing if he was, but he's not Jokic. Jokic is a great player. If he's a Şengün level talent, like the Rockets are the number 2 seed right now. And, I didn't see that coming. Playoff team, yes, but number 2. And then even like Sabonis, like the Kings they're in it. So it's like when you have that level of offensive talent, I think you just have to swing on it and hope that you build a team around him, because it's not fair to ask one guy to anchor your defense.
Yeah. So where did you have Derik Queen at number 4? Because you said you disagreed, because there's a couple guys that we each like, and I'm just curious on your order, because you said you didn't have him at 4.
So I didn't have Queen at 4. I believe I had him at 6, but you missed. I had Jeremiah Fears at 4. So what are your thoughts on Jeremiah Fears?
I love Jeremiah Fears. You might be slightly ahead of me in terms of tweeting about Fears, but when Fears hit that game winner against Michigan, I believe I either tweeted and tagged you or texted you, and among many other people that I talk basketball with, and said, this guy's got it. And there's the people that like to watch basketball through the lens of analytics, and they may not be as fond of Jeremiah Fears. And then there's guys like us who say, wow, that guy's nice and he's got it. And I really believe that Jeremiah Fears, despite some of the inefficiency that he went through in SEC play, in big games showed up. He was able to score in big games. They needed it most, led Oklahoma to the tournament. He's able to win big games early in the season, and he's fearless. No pun intended. He's able to go to the rim. He's able to score in the intermediate. He gets good looks for his teammates. I don't think he has had as much help as many of the other prospects we've spoken of in terms of their collegiate setup for success. And they overachieved and made the tournament when they probably shouldn't have, in the best SEC rendition ever. And he's just got this innate ability to find space, score, and make the correct read. And I really believe that's a combination that works, despite maybe not the best metrics of 6'2" without shoes type of guy. Maybe his shot isn't something that everyone buys into, but you watch him play enough times and he makes enough right plays and scores enough that it's hard to deny his potential.
I can go on a tangent about Jeremiah Fears. Like you said, I have him at 4. I just think he has it. And even if you say, well, the metrics say this, the metrics say that, like he's supposed to be in high school. Like him and Cooper Flagg are 2 of the youngest guys in this draft. And for them to I mean, it's different levels, but, Flagg did this at 18. Well, Fears led a team with no other NBA players in the toughest conference in America ever to the tournament. And he gave UConn everything that they possibly could handle. So, I mean, you're not going to, I feel like right there in the family. Speaking of 18-year-olds, and I want to jump. So you mentioned you got Milo Bauch at 8. You got Con Kneppel at 9. Those guys, we've seen them, that's fine. But I want to talk about Noah Esingeh at 10. Please tell me why you're so high on Noah Esingeh.
He's one of those guys that you look at the size, athleticism, fluidity combination, and guys like that stick out to me. And he's been able to put forth performances in a professional level that aren't just potential related. There's substance there, and that matters. You saw a guy like Bilal Coulibaly elevate himself up to number 7 in a previous draft by playing well in the playoffs. And everyone's looking at Wembanyama, but the guy who made the standout performances when it mattered most playing basketball, not just being hey, he's an intriguing athlete, Bilal Coulibaly. You look last year, Tijan Salaun, mixed results on that one, but he looks like he's a colt out there, a horse without the sea legs under him yet. But I think Asenge's got more talent that's been honed in upon, more skillful than some of those guys early, and he has those prototypical length and strength prerequisites that teams salivate over. Another guy that fits those billings that I have at number 14, so the backside of my lottery, is Carter Bryant. And so these are a few guys that I'm high on based on their archetype, and I think they have more skill than was allowed to be shown in both of their situations.
Yeah, I like Asenge. I have him, I believe, in the top 10 as well. I'm still kind of shifting stuff around just because it's that time of the year for me where I got to double back, triple back on guys to make sure that I like what I like and I'm not lying to myself. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes you say he or this player fits exactly what I like, and then you're like, you know what? He really didn't have this season, that I thought he did. But I like Asenge. He can't shoot, but he shoots the ball with confidence. And that to me means something. And like I want to say his last like 3 or 4 games, like he's letting it go with confidence. And they're not just like wide open threes. Like these are mild. I mean, you're gonna let him shoot because that's obviously his biggest weakness, but these are like contested threes that he's like shooting the ball and he's starting to knock them down. And again, we talked about Flagg being 18, we talked about Fears being 18. Senge barely made the deadline. I believe he is the youngest player in the draft. And again, Carter Bryant, he's going to be somebody that is going to test well because he is an athlete. I think he's going to shoot the ball well. It's just a matter of can he hone all those skills into being more than a role player, because I think he might go higher than what people think he is just because he's going to pass the eye test. I think he's going to shoot well. And then he's going to be somebody that, you get him some drills. He's going to be able to show that he can do more. But ultimately, is he going to be able to hone in besides being what we think is a 3-and-D guy? Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to follow up, and I'm just going to shoot off some names. And there is a omission, but Leif will address that. So stay tuned. So before we come back here, let me tell you about today's episode, which is sponsored by FanDuel. So the NBA playoffs are almost here. There's only a few games left, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the live action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or just diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. So, third and final segment. The previous segment, we kind of wrapped up the lottery, and we have players 15 through 30. So, I'm just going to list them off, and then I will just give Leif a quick chance to speak on a few guys. 15, Nolan Traore. That's about where I have him. 16, Ben Surratt. 17, Colin Murray Boyles. 18, Jace Richardson. 19, he has Neek Clifford. 20, we have Will Riley, but I believe there is an omission because Leif used Fanspo. I believe 20 is supposed to be Thomas Haugh.
Indeed. My guy, Thomas Haugh.
All right, Thomas Haugh at 20. So then we'll say 21 is Will Riley. 22, Jaeger Dimon, who I believe in a few hours has a big decision that he's going to announce. We'll see how that goes. 22, he has Cam Jones of Marquette. 23, Dink Pate. See, this is why me and Dink, me and Leif. This is why we get along. Dink Pate. 24, LeBaron Philon. 25, Maxime Reynaud of Stanford. He has Tyrese Proctor at 26. 27 is Rasheer Fleming. He has 28, Thomas Sorber. And I believe because Fanspo, they don't all have all the guys. There is one more guy missing. Who would that be, Leif?
I was torn between a few, so I left that one out because they were missing a few of the international prospects.
Mm-hmm.
Pendo is probably the guy I was going to put in there, but he was not on there. So for now, we'll go with that. There will be some alterations as I get watching more and more of the international film, but I feel pretty confident about most of these guys, especially the collegiate ones where they're ranked. And I'm curious to see your thoughts if there are any that were too high, too low on there for your eyes as someone who typically we think pretty alike.
All right, so we're like really close. I have Jace Richardson higher. I think I have him towards the back end of the lottery, but you have him at 18, so that's like not too far off. But I want to hear your thoughts because again, we think alike. I don't even know if we're eye testers versus analytics guys. We just like who we like, and then we let the stuff, blend together. Your thoughts on Colin Murray Boyles? You have him at 17, and I've seen people have him as high as 3. I've seen people have him in the lottery. But tell me your thoughts on Colin Murray Boyles.
Yeah, this is a guy that I'm not necessarily drawn to as a prospect in terms of he's not super tall. He's not like the best shooter, but productivity is productivity to a certain degree. And it's not like he's this super old guy who's dominating purely off physicality. I think he does dominate with physicality, but he's a sophomore. Like you can't be mad at him for being strong and playing to his strengths. He plays on a team that is devoid of talent and contended against the best of the best in the SEC and was productive. I like his ability to rebound. I like his ability to pass. So a lot of the intangibles I think are very impressive. I do have concerns about his shot. Is he Paul Millsap? Like, I don't necessarily believe that he's going to be the prime version of Paul Millsap, but I watched Paul Millsap when he was young with the Jazz, just had a nose for the ball, was a great rebounder, played hard, and made the right plays. Is there some sort of career path that follows the undersized power forward? I think in a old podcast with Rafael, I talked about him being maybe of the Carl Landry mold, someone who fills in. It's a different era. There's going to be less mid-range jump shots, but someone who can do a lot as a passer, a rebounder, and knock down enough shots to keep the defense honest. And I think there's a room for that. It's not a guy that I'm necessarily gravitating toward because some people, like you said, I've seen him as high as 2 or 3, and I don't see that buzz, but it is hard to deny his productivity and just effectiveness in big games.
Yeah, and I do like him as a defender. I have trouble finding out how it works for him on offense because he doesn't stretch the floor. And he is, as of today, he would almost be like an undersized 5. Now, again, he's still young for his class. I believe he's still 19 until 20 to the end of the summer. And he does have some playmaking skills, but at the same time, like I think he may be it's going to work, but I just don't like him as high as other people that like him. And it's just a matter of preference. Let me see here. You also have, please tell me about, actually, Rasheer Fleming at 27. I have Rasheer Fleming, I believe, at 15-ish. Why so low in comparison to me on Rasheer Fleming?
Yeah, I think part of my reservation is about his shooting. I think
he's shooting like 39%, Leif, on like 4
I know he is, but I still believe he's like the dare shooter. When you watch them play, he's known for his activity, his relative athleticism. He's a good athlete regardless, but compared to the Atlantic 10 competition, he stands out athletically. Yeah. And so I think they're more terrified of his drives and him being a guy who gets out in transition and defensive nightmare than as a shooter. This is one of those ones where the numbers will tell you he's a good shooter. My eyes tell me he's benefiting from defensive coverages and scouting reports. And I think the crazy part is I'm probably higher than most on Rasheer Fleming. So me being called low is funny on this one because many people probably don't know Rasheer Fleming's athletic ability, his defensive switch ability, the intangibles of getting hands on ball, passing, more fluid than most people around 6'8", 6'9". So there's a lot to like there. I'm just a little bit lower about his NBA capacity to knock down threes. Like, what is he? Maybe a Dorian Finney-Smith, a little more versatile. I'm not trying to throw a comp for everyone here, but we're just thinking about a way to tell you guys about Rasheer Fleming, what he does, and how to put it onto an NBA roster as opposed to starring on what I would say was a talented Atlantic 10 team, but not a team that has the talent level that you guys are used to watching after watching March Madness and seeing these teams from the SEC and the Big 12. He doesn't quite have this shooting ability that I say, wow, it's a differentiator, because if he did, then I think I see where your vision as a top 15 guy.
So Rasheed Fleming, I was right. He's shooting 39%. Well, let's start from freshman year, he shot 30%. Sophomore year, he shot 32%. His junior year, he's still only 20 years old. He doesn't turn 21 until the summer. He's shooting 39%. And, sometimes you'd be like, maybe it's an outlier season, but he's shooting 74% from the free throw line as well. I liken him to a not as good off the dribble as Tari Eason, because Tari Eason he has some ball handling ability, but just looking at him, and I feel like Rasheed is going to be able to defend 3s, 4s, and even 5s, depending on the lineup situation. I'm just higher on him. And while you may say it's Derik shots, he was making a lot of pick and pop 3s, and he's shooting the ball like extremely comfortably. I'm higher on him, obviously, than you, but I feel like he has a ton of talent. And I think he is what the modern NBA is at the hybrid 3, 4, 5 kind of guy. I think he just feels raw. All right. Lastly here, we're running out of time. Tell me about, let me see here. I know how you feel about Yegor. Let me pick one out. You have Thomas Sorber at 28. Is that because of the foot injury, or is that just because of a totality of everything?
A little bit of that. I think the totality would probably be slightly higher if he had not injured his foot. But because he did, I have questions about how the end of a draft would evaluate a guy like Sorber, as typically teams near the end of the draft are looking for guys who can impact, especially in today's CBA, where you're looking to people who can impact winning in their first 4 years before them. And he's young, and he's got that kind of gangly body. And if he's injured, I don't know how if that stunts his. Maybe that's unfair to him, but it's like heartache from my mind. He's talented. He's effective on the low block. He's skilled. My question really depends about the physicality to adapt to the NBA for him, as long but not very strong. And yes, you could say Amin Malawach was beaten up by big guys by Houston, and maybe the same London to effect in the championship game. But there's a difference between 7'2" with a 9'9" standing reach Malawach has versus Sorber, who's more block, and his appeal to me is more offensive defense in the NBA. So I guess I just hold the totality of, is he physical enough, and then with the fifth setback, he puts it a little lower in my mind. But I'm open to the opinion of him being higher on my.
I dig it. Well, hey, love it. Again, look at Leif's big board. Again, it's Leif Thulin, at Leif Thulin on Twitter, and I'm sure people can ask you. You answer all the questions. Leif is a good dude. So that wraps up today's episode of Big Board Volume 1.0. But let me tell you about the Locked On newsletter, and for guys like Leif who happen to be Jazz fans. Well, since the playoffs are out of reach this season for the Jazz and a few other teams, the future is still bright. Stay updated on all offseason's news, draft coverage, and expert analysis by subscribing to the Locked On newsletter. Again, these are for the non-playoff teams. So because the Jazz may not be playing, that doesn't mean you still can't win. You can win big by subscribing. Subscribe between April 7th, 2025 and April 30th, 2025 for a chance to win one of these amazing prizes. You can win a $2,500 Best Buy gift card to upgrade your sports cave. You might need to look into that. Or a $300 Game Time gift card. And then there's also a $200 Fanatics gift card. You can get exclusive insights into free agency, draft coverage, and team updates delivered straight to your inbox. To join the Locked On podcast for trusted coverage every day. Subscribe to enter today by clicking the link in the description. So that wraps up today's episode. I am James. That is Leif. And we will see you tomorrow.